Welcome to Downtown Sports. My name is Downtown Stephen Brown, and in today's video, how do the Toronto Maple Leafs and the other teams stack up in a hypothetical all-Canadian division? On one of the more recent editions of the Steve Dangle podcast, Chris Johnston of Sportsnet went on there and said that it's almost all but certain, but don't take Chris literally when he says things. I know journalists and reporters don't like when you do that because things are always subject to change. But it's more than likely, maybe that's a better word to use there, that the NHL is going to have to run with an all-Canadian division next season because of how strict cross-border travel and non-essential travel is going to be for the next little while. Now, there's 31 teams in the NHL. 7 of them are from Canada. That would leave the NHL with 24 teams to split between 3 other divisions. So that would mean 7, 8, 8, and 8. What I would assume they would then do is just take the best 4 teams from every division, because that would mean 16 teams would make the playoffs like they normally do in a normal year, and then they would just seed them based off of points percentage maybe. But that's getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, because right now this video is about how the Leafs would stack up against the Canadian division. This is a neat little lineup creator tool from @ChartingHockey here, and it is a Patreon service that he offers as part of his website, and I will leave it linked in the description of this video if any of you are interested in messing around with it or fooling around with it or want to subscribe for yourself. It's not perfect because it is missing some European signings and some prospects. Like on the Leafs here, we are missing Mikko Lehtinen, but we are able to supplement him or replace him with just a average defenseman playing third pair minutes there. But for the people that are going to complain about the tool that I'm using or the stats that are up on the screen, it's a projection. No projections are perfect. That's why we actually play the games. But with a lineup similar to this, with the ice time distributed the way that it is, it projects the Maple Leafs to have about 94 points in the standings over the course of an 82-game season. And if we're looking at last year's standings, that's about what the Maple Leafs were on pace for last season, and that was good enough for them to just squeak into the playoffs. Now, a big reason why the projected standing points aren't a lot higher is because Frederick Anderson had a very, very poor season last year in terms of goals saved versus expectation. Basically, an expected goals allowed stat for goalies. It takes into account the quality of scoring chances that the teams had against the Leafs and the quantity of them. And it's really hard to tell with goalies, but that is not the Frederick Anderson that we all know and have come to love here in Toronto. And it's very hard to tell, especially with goaltenders, if this is Frederick Anderson just regressing due to age and injuries, or if this is him just very, very overworked because he has played more minutes and faced more shots than any other goalie in the NHL by a wide margin over the last 4 seasons. If Frederick Anderson plays closer to his career average in terms of goals saved versus expectations, the Maple Leafs projected points in the standings there on the little chart or the lineup creator that I showed would be a lot higher. So that brings me to the first team that I am going to look at in this hypothetical all-Canadian division, and that is the Winnipeg Jets. And if the lines look a little bit screwy, I didn't do this myself. This is from dailyfaceoff.com. The Jets are a team with elite goaltending here, and the one thing that I am going to say, I am going to put a disclaimer on here, and I asked Sean about this before the video, is I asked him, what does team effect mean? And team effect is basically PDO, and what PDO does is it measures a team's shooting percentage and save percentage and says that it shouldn't be higher than this. And if it is higher than that, then that means the team has gotten really lucky in its results so far. And if it's under that number or under the average, then that means that the team is unlucky. But to that, I would say teams are allowed to have above average shooters and elite goaltenders. And the Winnipeg Jets are a team who have an elite goaltender and they have elite shooters. Especially when we're talking about the elite goaltending. Connor Hellebuyck won the Vezina Trophy last year, and he probably should have won the Hart Trophy for how well he played. The Jets are a team kind of similar to the Toronto Maple Leafs where they can score the lights out on you, but they're not necessarily the best defensive team, but they are propped up, like I said, with elite goaltending in Connor Hellebuyck. The Winnipeg Jets are definitely one of the teams that I could see snagging one of the playoff spots in the Canadian division. Now, the Montreal Canadiens here, just relax a little bit here. The projected standing points, yes, it is higher than the Toronto Maple Leafs, but the one thing that I will say about the Montreal Canadiens, and everyone who watched them last season would agree with this, I don't need advanced analytics to point this out, the Montreal Canadiens were a team that had an extremely low PDO. Now, a lot of people pointed that out and said that that's just bad luck, but when I looked at the Montreal Canadiens last season, and when you look at them this season, they created scoring chances at a very, very high rate last season, and dangerous scoring chances, but they weren't able to finish them because they just didn't have guys with finishing touches on their team. They didn't have just goal scorers on their team. And I don't care, you can fight me on it. The only guy on this team that has scored 30 goals anytime at any point of his career is Brendan Gallagher, and he's done it twice, and his career high is 33. They do have a lot of depth scoring here, and they did bring in Josh Anderson, but they had to give up Max Domi to do it. So I don't know how much more offense that really is creating for the team. And if we switch this team effect over here to model their luck from last season, the Montreal Canadiens standing points just go way, way down. So I'll leave it up to you guys. Has Montreal done enough with their additions this offseason and their subtractions, because you have to consider both? Have they done enough to address their need for more of a scoring touch? I don't know. I mean, Shea Weber's had to deal with some injuries over the past couple of years, but when he is in the lineup, he's an absolute monster. Carey Price, I don't know. Are we going to see the same Carey Price that we saw in the playoffs last year against the Philadelphia Flyers and the Pittsburgh Penguins? Because if we do, I can maybe believe that 99-point projection. But for now, the Montreal Canadiens have more things to prove than they have proved so far. The Edmonton Oilers are the next team up here, and I do have Oscar Klefbom in this projection, and they're more than likely not going to have him for the majority of next season, whenever the hell it does start. He is having some type of surgery that's going to keep him out for 4 or 5 months. So Edmonton, I am being generous to you by including him in this projection. But I like what they did this offseason. They brought in another third-line center, which allows them to play Connor McDavid on their own line, Leon Draisaitl on his own line, and Ryan Nugent-Hopkins with one of the two of them. They also brought back Jesse Puljujarvi, so that is another winger to add to this team, and I don't know. I really don't know what he's going to be, but I would assume he'd be at least an average third-line player for them. I'm not going to give this team too much credit because it is a team that was bounced out by the Chicago Blackhawks, who are now rebuilding. But they're always a threat when they have Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, so you're going to have to watch out for them. But I do think that the Maple Leafs edged them out. The Calgary Flames did a lot, but for some reason, they just don't scare me. I don't know why I have that feeling. They just don't. They have some great defenders, they have some amazing forwards, but I don't know. Whenever I've watched them play in the playoffs, it seems like their best players never show up. We're going to have to see how their blue line holds together next season because Chris Tanev, we know how injury prone he is. Mark Giordano is amazing, but he is getting up there in age. And I don't know. They are a team to worry about, but I think that the Maple Leafs can handle them. The Vancouver Canucks objectively got worse everywhere. Barring Thatcher Demko pulling what he did against the Vegas Golden Knights all season long, I don't think that this team's got a shot. And it's unfortunate because I love their young core. They were such an exciting team to watch in the playoffs, and I did find myself pulling for them. The Ottawa Senators are not going to be included in this, and I am not looking for them in any rearview mirror or any mirror for that matter, or anything that's even reflective even, just because of this. They don't scare me. They lost one of their better defensemen in terms of Mark Borowiecki. They lost Anthony Duclair from what it looks like. They retained guys like Connor Brown. They do have a youth injection in their lineup, but overall, I don't think that they're going to be very competitive, and I think that Matt Murray is kind of overrated. So where do I see the Maple Leafs finishing in this division? I can see them finishing higher than the Habs for sure. I can see them finishing higher than the Oilers, but the Oilers would definitely give them a little bit more fight than the Montreal Canadiens. I can see them having some problems with the Calgary Flames, but I can see them edging them out. The Winnipeg Jets, I think, are going to take the Canadian division just because of their elite goaltending and their forward depth up front. If they can get some of their younger prospects on defense to really fill the holes in here, they're going to be a really, really scary team to come out of that division. And like I said, the Vancouver Canucks, they don't really scare me. This Maple Leafs team feels very, very similar to what it did during the 16-17 season where Nick Kypreos was spot on in his analysis. The Toronto Maple Leafs are going to go as far as Frederick Anderson can carry them. And that's not because the defense is bad or not better than it was last year. It should be better than what it was last year. But because if you've watched the Stanley Cup Finals and these most recent playoffs, goaltending is very, very important. It's how the Columbus Blue Jackets were able to beat the Maple Leafs in the first place in the play-in round. So in this hypothetical Canadian division 1 through 7, I'm going to say that the standings break down like this. First place, the Winnipeg Jets. Second, the Toronto Maple Leafs. Third, the Calgary Flames. Fourth, the Edmonton Oilers. Fifth, the Montreal Canadiens. Sixth, the Vancouver Canucks. And seventh, the Ottawa Senators. I know this video might draw a little bit more interest from opposing teams as to what I'm used to. This is a Leaf predominant audience, but I think that I was pretty fair in my assessment here. So make sure to leave me a comment on the video letting me know what you thought of things. Make sure to leave me a like on the video if you did like it, and subscribe for more because more is always on the way. And guys, remember, the Leafs are only going to go as far as Frederick Anderson can carry them next season.